Today I'm going to show you how to make a soda can stove. Not the regular penny stove, but another form of it that is self-priming, and you don't have to spill alcohol all over the outside of the stove and surrounding areas to prime it. Welcome back to Survival Existence. Hello and welcome back to Survival Existence. Today I'm going to show you how to make a soda can stove. Not the regular penny stove, but another form of it that is self-priming, and you don't have to spill alcohol all over the outside of the stove and surrounding areas to prime it. In order to make this stove, you'll only need a couple of soda cans and perhaps a pair of scissors and a razor cutter of some sort, whether it's an X-Acto knife, carpet knife, or some other sort of sharp cutting instrument in order to score and cut the cans. And you'll also need something to poke holes with, either a push pin like this, or an awl, or perhaps even a small drill bit will do. First, I'll take one of the cans and turn the bottom side up. What we're going to do is make the top part of the stove first the burner. And what we're going to do is put holes across from each other. One here, one there, one there, one there, and keep on until we have several holes. These particular kinds of stoves are not designed for cooking on. They're designed for heating water up, hopefully to the boiling point, to either clean it enough to make it drinkable, or to heat up an instant meal, such as some of the Mountain House products that you can buy. Once you have several holes around the top, or in this case the bottom of the Coke can, the top of your burner, you don't have to have a particular amount of holes, but you do want several. You'll certainly want more than 4, or even perhaps even 8. 8 might work, but you're probably closer to being 16 would be better. Next, we're going to remove the bottom part of this can by using this razor knife to score. Just keep on cutting on around and around, and eventually it'll come through. Just like that. And it should look just like that. You want this rib here because you're going to cut a separate piece of this can in order to fit up between the bottom of the burner and this top. It'll all fit in here at the top and also at the bottom. In order to cut your cans to make the height of burner that you want, of course, taller burner or larger burner will hold, of course, more alcohol and will burn longer, and a shorter one won't last as long. Of course, the shorter one doesn't take up as much room, but the decision is yours of how big of a alcohol stove that you may need. I found that this old dictionary of mine is approximately the correct size to boil water at whatever temperature, whether it's you're melting snow for drinking water or to cook with, or whatever you're doing. I find that it makes approximately the correct size of stove for me personally. But with it, you do just like you did the bottom of the can. You'll use your razor cutter to score the can. Just simply hold it in a single position and turn the can itself. Don't turn the knife blade. Once you have this can scored with your razor cutter, then you can go about using a pair of scissors or tin snips. I find scissors are far easier, and with the line being evenly around this can, an even height due to using the book, it makes it much neater. But just simply take your razor knife and gently, trying to not bend the can, simply poke a hole in it. And you can continue to use your razor knife if you want to, or you can use a pair of scissors. Makes it a little bit easier and somewhat neater also. With this aluminum wall, we've notched this up from the bottom on this side, down from the top, the correct diameter to fit inside of the groove inside of these cans. And you just simply slide them together just like that. And down on the bottom, you want to cut a notch right here and right here. At least one notch. I usually cut two, in order for the free flow of the alcohol in the stove to go from the inside to the outside. We're going to set this aluminum wall down inside that groove. As you can see, it fits just perfectly. Next, we're going to put the top part of this burner down on the inside, hopefully between this aluminum wall and the outside of the stove itself. And as it slides up the inside and goes in to this groove, it'll pull it together, and there it'll stay. Quite often these are very difficult to get inserted. I've had a great deal of difficulty getting them to go. Sometimes it does help if you use a pair of pliers and crimp these where it'll go together much like a stovepipe will. Sometimes it doesn't help at all. Okay, now I'm finally getting it in there. As you push this together, make sure this inside wall gets properly inserted in the groove in the bottom and the top of the burner. So go very slowly in order to get them to fit. As you can see, it's slowly going into the bottom, and it's already in pretty much at the top. We're going to bring it together. Now the top of this has some jagged edges on it. They're jagged and ragged, and they'll cut you. And the best thing you can do is, if you can simply break them off, do. If you can't, use a pair of scissors. Get as much of it as you can off of there, off of each one of them. And you can take a any piece of metal, whether it's a screwdriver, this pair of scissors, razor cutters, whatever, and force it down and round it off a little bit. As you can see, even though I cut this bottom a little bit shorter than what I did the top of the burner, it's still almost overlapping right there. But I'm going to tool this on down to make sure there's no sharp edges, so that it doesn't cut me or anyone else somewhere down the line who may use this particular alcohol burner. Like I said, alcohol stoves are not designed for cooking food. They're designed for boiling water to the point to make it drinkable, and also boiling water to the point of being able to eat freeze-dried foods. And there it is, alcohol stove. Not very difficult to make at all. In just a minute, I'll light this up and we'll see how it burns. I'm going to light both the penny can stove and this new stove I just made. I prefer this type of stove to the penny can stove, and it'll become obvious in a minute why. It's not that one necessarily heats better than the other, because I cannot tell the difference between either one of them. But in order to get this penny can stove heated up to the point where the alcohol start gassing off and burning through the burners, you have to pour alcohol on the outside of it and around it and light it in order to heat it up and to get it started. I've also taken an old cookie sheet and placed in it some aluminum foil in case of catastrophic failure, which can happen. And also because I'm going to have to pour some of this heat out on the outside of the stove in order for it to heat up. Heat is alcohol, and it's by far the cheapest alcohol that I've been able to find for these kind of stoves. You can use a high percentage of rubbing alcohol, although it doesn't work nearly as well, doesn't light nearly as easy, and you can also get alcohol from your paint department at a department store that will work, but there again doesn't work as well, and it's cheaper to get this. So with this heat being cheaper and working better, it's a no-brainer. Use the heat. I'm not going to fill this penny can stove all the way up for the simple reason that I don't necessarily need it. Okay, that should be enough. This is a penny. Quite often people tell you can't use one of the newer pennies because they're made out of zinc, they'll melt, etc., etc. You need to use one of the older pre-83 all copper pennies, which would be better, not necessary though. The heat this develops, I haven't known it to melt the zinc pennies, although it does damage them severely, but they'll work just fine also. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start this penny can stove. But like I was saying, whenever you use a penny can stove, you have to pour alcohol to the outside, and therefore you don't need to be in a flammable area whenever you light one of these, because you can set everything on fire. I'm going to go ahead and light that. I'm going to turn these lights out so that perhaps we'll be able to see it. This alcohol burns with blue flames, and it's difficult to see even whenever it's darker, and certainly even more difficult to see whenever lights are on. As you can see, this stove is ready to use now. Penny stoves are good stoves, no doubt about it. I just don't like having to put alcohol on the outside in order to prime the stove up so it'll pressurize and start burning properly. As soon as this burns out, I'll move it to the side and put a new stove up here and use it. It doesn't need a penny, and it does not need to have alcohol poured on the outside and around it in order to prime the stove to get it to work. These alcohol stoves are designed to use alcohol. Like I said before, I use heat in these stoves, but only use the heat in the yellow container. Don't use the red container. Yellow container is what you want. Red container will not work. Okay, we're going to load up this new alcohol stove with alcohol and get it lit and see how well it's going to do. Okay, I filled it about half full, somewhere close at any rate. And I'm going to go ahead and light this. With these stoves, you don't have to slosh alcohol over the sides, although be careful with them in case you have. But you light these directly in the middle and it flames up in there and self-priming, and it's not nearly as much of a fire hazard. Okay, I'm going to turn these lights off so you can see how it's burning. It'll prime itself up just simply by burning on the inside like that. After it gets the heat up high enough and the fumes start going to the outside, the flame should start coming out of these little jet holes we push pinned in. One of the drawbacks of these stoves is they're not very wind resistant, and that's why I have this particular piece of flashing. It's not only to keep the pot off of the top of the stove itself. They're made out of aluminum and are somewhat delicate, and you do not want to put too much pressure on them. And that's a good enough reason to have some sort of pot stand. It's also to keep the wind, whenever you're outside, off of the stove itself in order to keep blowing it out. I see the stove still is not burning as it should. Well, this particular alcohol stove still hasn't started burning out of the jets. Perhaps it would have been better if I placed the holes a little bit further towards the outside. I don't know. I know it's not, doesn't appear to be working very well right now. That I do know. I'm going to attempt to poke some extra holes further towards the outside of this stove with this awl and see if that corrects the problem. Okay, let's light it again and see how it does. Turn the lights up and see if the burners catch. On this side over here, one or two of them is trying to catch. Let's see how it does after it warms up. I may have put the holes entirely too close to the inside. The burners are catching now, so what I did is I put the burner jet holes too close to the inside. I need them further outside. Let's see how long it takes this stove now to warm up or start boiling 2 cups of water. After a little experimentation, I figured out how to get this particular stove to operate. Now we're going to see how long it takes to get 2 cups of water boiling. Okay, it took 10 minutes to get this water up to boiling, and what little alcohol I put in there, which maybe is a quarter full, it took the entire amount of time to get it boiling. So that's not too bad. Glad I figured out what was going on with this thing and added some additional holes to this new alcohol stove, because it is a lot easier and cleaner to use. Making and comparing an alcohol penny stove to an alcohol stove. This has been Bobby with Survival Existence, helping you help yourself. Join us on Facebook, subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, and come visit us at our website at survivalexistence.com. Have a good day.